بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على أشرف المرسلين وخاتم النبيين البشير النذير السراج المنير رحمة الله للعالمين. Dear brothers and sisters, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. May Allah's peace, His serenity, His mercy, and His grace be yours today and forever. Today happens to be Eid al-Fitr, Eid al-Adha, the festival of sacrifice in which we remember and learn from what happened between Prophet Ibrahim and Prophet Ismail, father and son. The performance of the Hajj is very important. It has very significant meanings. Unfortunately, it has been reduced throughout these many generations. It has been reduced to something like a religious ritual that only satisfies the personal psychology of the pilgrim. Doesn't have any meanings that extend into society, into continents, and into the world. I will dedicate a good portion of today's presentation to the issue of the Hajj. But before I do that, and within obviously the time frame that we have, I just not to lose the sequence of the previous presentations, I will touch upon some meanings in Surat Yusuf. This is the weekly family get-together in the presence of the All-Merciful and the Almighty. The last time around, we reached the ayat فَلَمَّا رَأَى قَمِيصَهُ قُدَّ مِن دُبُرٍ قَالَ هَذَا مِن كَيْدِكُنَّ إِنَّ كَيْدَكُنَّ عَظِيمٌ. When the populist ruler of Egypt arrived at his palace, at his mansion, he saw that there was a type of struggle between Yusuf, the lad, now the young man, and his wife. And to begin with, this type of disagreement was between Yusuf and the wife of the populist ruler of Egypt, Azizu Misr. Now, there are only two. The Quran speaks about Yusuf and Imra'at al-Aziz. Now, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is telling us that فَأَلْفَيَا سَيِّدَهَا لَدَى الْبَابِ. Both of them, when they were rushed to the door, they found the master populist ruler at the door. So now we have three individuals who are privy to something that was at least immoral that was going on. The extent of that immorality was not divulged in those moments. And then we had a fourth person, وَشَهِدَ شَاهِدٌ مِّنْ أَهْلِهَا. So we have four individuals now, the Quran speaking to us, Allah's words are explaining to us the scene of a potential violation of morality. So after the witness spoke his words and the Aziz Misr, the popular ruler of Egypt, after he realized what happened, and that was Yusuf was trying to run away from the seduction of his own wife, of Aziz Misr, his own wife, he said, فلما رأى قميصه قد من دبر قال هذا من كيدكن إن كيدكن عظيم. He expressed, these are words of wisdom being expressed by a person that we don't even know what his convictions are. But it appears that he was a man of fairness and a balanced mindset. So he says a statement, إِنَّ كَيْدَكُنَّ عَظِيمٌ, your scheming, referring to women or wives, is of a great magnitude. It's very deep. Your conspiracies are very deep. This is reminiscent of a statement that was said by the Queen of Sheba, as she is known in history books, when she received the communique or the letter or the correspondence from Sulaiman alayhi salam, Prophet Sulaiman, Solomon. She said also, before she became a Muslimah, because later on she goes and she meets Sulaiman and she says, Aslamtu ma'a Sulaiman li Rabbil Alameen. I express my acquiescence to the sustainer of the world along with Sulaiman. I express my acquiescence along with Sulaiman to the sustainer of all the worlds. She said, remember, before she became a Muslim, إِنَّ الْمُلُوكَ إِذَا دَخَلُوا قَرْيَةً أَفْسَدُوهَا وَجَعَلُوا أَعِزَّةَ أَهْلِهَا أَذِلَّةً وَكَذَلِكَ يَفْعَلُونَ. Of a certainty, monarchs or dictators or emperors, when they enter into a civilized society, they make the most honorable in that society the most debased. جَعَلُوا أَعِزَّةَ أَهْلِهَا أَذِلَّةً وَكَذَلِكَ يَفْعَلُونَ. It is their policies to do this. It's been that way and it continues to be that way. وَكَذَلِكَ يَفْعَلُونَ. This is a statement that was pronounced by a woman ruler before she became a Muslimah. The Quran, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, puts her statements, I'm being a little dramatic here, puts it in quotation marks, maybe to teach us that even people who are not yet Muslims can be fair, even if they are in positions of power. It's not the norm. It's not something you'll find every day and everywhere. But there are some times where you will find those types of individuals. So here, in Surat Yusuf alayhi salam, we also encounter the words of Allah that have captured the fair words of a fair man. Inna kayda kunna azim. He's addressing the conspiracy, the scheming or the plotting of, it could be women, or it could be wives, or it could be both. So the same person, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, remember, we don't know that this person is a Muslim. There's nothing that the information that has come our way from the Quran or from the Sunnah that indicate that this person was a Muslim. There's nothing, we can't say that. Yet, he's being quoted by Allah Jalla wa Ala. So what does he say? He's there at the door. There's a witness there, and there's Yusuf, and there's the wife, his wife. So what does he say? He looks at Yusuf and he says, Yusuf, a'rid an hadha. Yusuf, he's speaking to Yusuf now. He's saying, don't be, it's like saying, this doesn't concern you. Or think about it as if it never happened. Yusuf, a'rid an hadha. And then he turns to his wife and he says to his wife, وَاسْتَغْفِرِي لِذَنْبِكِ. Ask for forgiveness because of your sin. He realized that his wife was cheating, attempting to cheat on him, to violate the marital relationship, the sanctity of a marital relationship. وَاسْتَغْفِرِي لِذَنْبِكِ إِنَّكِ كُنْتِ مِنَ الْخَاطِئِينَ. You were in the wrong. Simple. He stated that to her. And then the Quran, Allah's words, they take us to another scene. وقال نسوة في المدينة امرأة العزيز تراود فتاها عن نفسه. This ayah is telling us women in the city are saying the wife of the populist ruler is trying to win over Yusuf passionately and lovingly to herself. امرأة العزيز تراود يوسف عن نفسه قد شغفها حبا. Her love for him has engulfed her heart. إنا لنراها في ضلال مبين. We can see that she is obviously on a deviant course. Obvious deviant course. Now, they're not saying this in a moral sense, that they are more of a moral character or quality than she is. They are saying this to score against her. Now, before we follow this scenario, we should ask ourselves, okay, there were 4 people there at the scene of the potential crime, moral crime. There were 4 people. Al-Aziz, the popular ruler, the witness, the popular ruler's wife, and Yusuf. And you would think that this would have to be kept secret. Al-Aziz himself would obviously would not want this to become public information, the talk of the town. The seducer, his wife, also does not want this to become something that everyone knows. And Al-Aziz says to Yusuf, أعرض عن هذا, consider this none of your business, or it never happened, and just think about it as something that is not recorded in your mind. So the only potential person that may have leaked this was the witness. We don't know. But a little thinking of human nature along with the meanings of these ayat, somehow, okay, let's say it wasn't, but somehow word got out, information leaked about this, so that women, and this is probably not just the average women in the city, it's probably the high class society of women in that city, who began to gossip and speak about what happened in the royal court, or in the royal palace, or in the royal mansion. So when Imra'at al-Aziz, the ruler's wife, when she heard that, word got around, people are speaking about all of this, when she heard about all of that, فَلَمَّا سَمِعَتْ بِمَكْرِهِنَّ أَرْسَلَتْ إِلَيْهِنَّ. When she heard that, they are up to something, something that's not favorable, they're planning something with the innuendo, and sometimes the accuracy of the news is lost because one person says one thing, and then the third one says something similar, and the fourth one says something almost similar, and the fifth, it keeps on going like that until the whole issue is distorted. It could have become in the gossiping corners of the high elites of that city, she had an affair with Yusuf. She didn't, but this is the way sometimes this type of information, that's the way it travels, unfortunately. So when she heard that this rumors and propaganda are being churned out by the gossiping class, أرسلت إليهن, she invited them. Please come, this invitation is to you. She sent them invitations. أرسلت إليهن. Obviously, they responded favorably. They wanted to see what all of this is about. Yeah, we'll have a session with her. Sit down and let's see what this is all about. وَأَعْتَدَتْ لَهُنَّ مُتَّكَأً. This seducer wife of the ruler, she was preparing the scene for them. She set everything up. She gave them a comfortable place to sit in. It's like in today's world, probably, sitting in sofas or love seats or these types of things, to feel very comfortable. She didn't want them to sit on the floor. She didn't want them sitting in chairs. She didn't want them to sit in a squirming position. She wanted them to be extremely relaxed. Now, we're looking at a person who has some psychology here. وَآتَتْ كُلَّ وَاحِدَةٍ مِّنْهُنَّ سِكِّينًا. And then she gave each one of them a knife. Obviously, when she's giving them a comfortable seat to sit in, and then she gives each one of them a knife, obviously she's a host, and treating her guests, the gossiping women, treating them very well. And of course, when you give them a knife, you bring them the fruits and whatever goodies that you use the knife. In all likelihood, it was fruits and vegetables so that they can relish what she is offering them. And then when she set up, it's almost like a theater here. She set all of this up. Then at that moment, they're all relaxed, they're all comfortable, they're thinking they're going to speak about this gossipy issue, the rumors that are going around. You would think that Imra'at al-Aziz is going to rest this whole issue. She's going to deflate it. That's what no. This is what she says. She says, "Ukhruj alayhin." She says to Yusuf, present yourself to them. وَقَالَتْ أُخْرُجْ عَلَيْهِنْ. Yusuf is there to obey. He's living, this is his master's house, home, palace. فَلَمَّا رَأَيْنَهُ أَكْبَرْنَهُ. When they, the women who are sitting there comfortably relaxed, when they saw him, it was beyond their imagination. أَكْبَرْنَهُ. Because they had an image of him. And what is an image of a young man serving in the palace? Oh, well, some guy, you know. So, but when they saw him in reality, face to face, أكبرنه. His just seeing him eclipsed their impressions or their previous imagery about him. فلما رأينه أكبرنه وقطعن أيديهن. With the knives they had, they cut their hands. This would mean Yusuf was extremely attractive and extremely handsome. Here's, in an ayah like this, it sort of is inviting whatever psychology, information, or knowledge we have to dwell on the evaluation of beauty by women. And this hasn't been done. There are many ayat in the Quran that invite people who have certain knowledge in certain fields or in certain areas to come and expand a little more on the meaning of this particular ayah or this particular sentence. فَلَمَّا رَأَيْنَهُ أَكْبَرْنَهُ وَقَطَّعْنَ أَيْدِيَهُنَّ وَقُلْنَ حَاشَا لِلَّهِ مَا هَذَا بَشَرًا. They said, could it be, O Allah, this is not a human being. In هذا إلا ملك كريم. This person, this Yusuf, now that they saw him, is an adorable angel. In هذا إلا ملك كريم. At that point, the seducer, the wife of the ruler, said, قالت فذلكن الذي لمتنني فيه. Okay, now all of you, now you can see the person that you were trying to to make me blameworthy for, trying to make me feel guilty of. وَلَقَدْ رَاوَدْتُهُ عَنْ نَفْسِهِ. Yes, indeed, I tried to negotiate his passion to come to me. فَاسْتَعْصَمْ. He took to defending and protecting himself. وَلَئِن لَمْ يَفْعَلْ مَا آمُرُهُ لَيُسْجَنَنْ. And if he's not going to do what I tell him to do, definitely he's going to be thrown behind bars. He's going to be put in prison. He's going to be locked up. وَلَيَكُونَنَّ مِنَ الصَّاغِرِينَ. And he, now of course he's here in high class, ruling class, wealthy class society. After he's going to be thrown in prison, وَلَيَكُونَنَّ مِنَ الصَّاغِرِينَ, he's going to become a lowlife. وَلَيَكُونَنَّ مِنَ الصَّاغِرِينَ. He's going to go down. On the social ladder, he's up here. If he's not going to do what I tell him to do, he's going to go down. Yusuf is watching, listening, observing all of this. So what does he say? قال رب السجن أحب إلي مما يدعونني إليه. He said, going to prison is more preferable to me. I prefer that than to acquiesce, to accept what they want me to do. They, women now the women who were speaking against the ruler's wife, now they agreed with him. They also wanted to have Yusuf to themselves. So he realizes all this, he says, no, I'd rather go to prison. I'd rather be behind bars than to fall into this type of temptation, this type of immorality, and this type of sin. Notice, just a little thinking here, that's all I'm inviting everyone to think a little. Notice he didn't play tricks. Maybe I can have an affair with one of them, or have an affair with the other one, and this will be some type of temporary relationship. Something can be worked out in that regard. Or just have a relationship with them that, they can divorce their husbands. Work something out here. Okay, if we want to be husband and wife, you have to divorce your husband. It has to be done the right way and all. He knew that even though they were very attracted to him, they were very in love with him, to capture the whole range of passion of a woman, we can understand Imra'at al-Aziz. She was with him for years. But these women who just came, they're just with him for what? An hour or two or whatever it was? Definitely not more than a day. And then they wanted him for themselves, and some of them may not have been married. He could have said, well, whoever is not married, why not? There's a way out of this. No, he didn't. Because the relationship between a man and a woman, a husband and a wife, is a relationship وَأَخَذْنَ مِنْكُمْ مِيثَاقًا غَلِيظًا. Another ayah in Surah Nisa says, women, when they are married, they take the most solemn, the deepest vow, relationship, connection, fealty with you, the husbands. This is the range and this is the meaning of this relationship. And he wanted to bypass all of that. He said, I'd rather go to prison than have any of this type of relationship with any one of this. وَإِلَّا تَصْرِفْ عَنِّي كَيْدَهُنَّ أَصْبُ إِلَيْهِنَّ. He recognizes his human nature. He's a man. He's a man who's in his prime now. And he has this urge. He's not, sterile. He's not eunuch. He's a man with the virility of a man. And he says to Allah, if you don't save me from this, I'm going to fall into this trap. وَأَكُمْ مِنَ الْجَاهِلِينَ. And thus become a person whose knowledge falls short of doing what has to be done in the right manner. فَاسْتَجَابَ لَهُ رَبُّهُ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala responded to him. فَصَرَفَ عَنْهُ كَيْدَهُنَّ. Allah moved their conspiracies away from Yusuf. إِنَّهُ هُوَ السَّمِيعُ الْعَلِيمُ. See, Allah listens and Allah knows. He listens to everything we say to Him, and He has better knowledge of what we know of our own condition than our own knowledge. ثم بدا لهم من بعد ما رأوا الآيات ليسجننه إلى حين. The authorities that were there, and obviously the ruler's wife has influence in the decision-making process, they decided that they will definitely put him behind bars, put him in prison, at least for a certain time period. And then, inshallah, we will, maybe we'll take another ayah. It says, وَدَخَلَ مَعَهُ السِّجْنَ فَتَيَانِ قَالَ أَحَدُهُمَا. Okay, here we shift. The ayat in the Quran shift to a new scene. And this is when Yusuf enters prison. And along with him, there's these two young individuals who enter prison with him. One of them says, I see that I am pressing grapes to produce wine. And the other says, I see that I have on my head some bread out of which birds are eating. And they ask Yusuf, please tell us what the meaning of this is, because we see that you are a person who is capable of doing that. وَدَخَلَ مَعَهُ السِّجْنَ فَتَيَانِ قَالَ أَحَدُهُمَا إِنِّي أَرَانِي أَعْصِرُ خَمْرًا وَقَالَ الْآخَرُ إِنِّي أراني أحمل فوق رأسي خبزا تأكل الطير منه نبئنا بتأويله إنا نراك من المحسنين. Inshallah, we will follow this up in the coming session. But here is where I want to dedicate the last minutes in this presentation. I want to dedicate the last minutes to the Hajj. It's very sad that, number one, we don't have a committee, an organization of Islamic medical personnel, doctors, physicians, scientists in the different fields of the human anatomy and of chemistry and biology, etc., to tell us or evaluate what this coronavirus, COVID-19, is. All the information we have are coming from laboratories and from institutions and from sources of information that are not Islamic. We don't have. The first thing that should come to our mind is, why don't we Muslims, why don't we have what it takes to evaluate for ourselves what this is? Because right now there's different information going back and forth among those who are not Muslims as to the nature of this COVID-19. So what has been decided upon in Al-Hijaz, in the Arabian Peninsula, by the rulers who rule over Mecca and Al-Medina, they decided that they're going to deal with the Hajj this year, as well as the Umrah, but in particular we're concerned here with the Hajj. They're going to deal with it as a social distancing issue. They are going to follow the Center for Disease Control, the CDC, and the National Institutes of Health, and all of these other, let's call them establishmentarian medical institutions. So they've number one, those rulers in Arabia, they said that only 10,000 people are going to be permitted to come to the Hajj. Some reports say 1,000. I'm still not very clear on that, but let's say it's 10,000. That's the most. They're only permitting 10,000. Those 10,000 are living in that nation state called Saudi Arabia. No Hajj, no pilgrim has come to Mecca and Al-Medina this year from outside of Saudi Arabia. No one. Everyone who went to Mecca and Al-Medina for Hajj this year lives in Saudi Arabia. They tell us, this is the information that comes from them, they tell us that 70% of them who are permitted by the Saudi rulers to perform the Hajj. We don't need permission to perform Hajj, but here you have it. It's a violation of Allah and His Prophet that Muslims need permission to go to Mecca and Al-Medina. So they permit 70% of non-Saudis who are, let's call them legal residents of the kingdom, to go to Hajj. How did they select these? We don't know. There's much more. There's millions of legal residents who live in that country. But they selected 7,000. How did they select 7,000? We don't know. And then the other 3,000 are Saudi citizens. Roughly one third of those performing the Hajj are Saudis, and roughly 2/3 of those performing the Saudis are the rest of the Muslims in all the world. Is that fair? Just in that little math calculation, is justice being done here, or is there a form of discrimination, bigotry? I don't want to know what you want to call it, racism, tribalism, the same isms, the selfishness that we concentrate on in Surat Yusuf. And then what do they tell? They have to wear masks. And there has to be 6 feet social distancing between each one and the other. I don't know if you've seen it, but if you saw the pictures of those going around the Kaaba today and yesterday, there was about 8 circles, 8 lines, 8 circles around the Kaaba. And between each Muslim and the other, there was about, 5, 6, 7 feet. They were social distancing. And they're wearing these masks over their mouths and their nose. And they're wearing gloves. And each one of them, we are told, this is what the news is saying, is provided with personal protection equipment, PPIs or PPEs, and some of them are wearing bracelets that monitor where they go. This has become the land of bid'ahs. All of these procedures are bid'ahs. They are a violation of the way we conduct ourselves in performing our obligations, in fulfillment of our Islamic duties. All of this. It's a sad year. We're supposed to be happy on this day. We're supposed to communicate as much joy as we can to ourselves, to our families, to our neighbors, to our communities, to our societies, and to the world at large. How can we do this when Mecca is no longer an Islamic city, an Islamic area? How can we do that? And to add insult to injury, one Israeli newspaper that I know of and another Israeli TV station, they said that this is a wonderful Hajj. And they congratulate the Muslims on this occasion, looking at just a few individuals going around the Kaaba, instead of the Muslims having tens of millions of us going around the Kaaba every year. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala designated Mecca as al-Qura, the mother of all civilized societies. That's what it's supposed to be, but we're now almost a Mecca nothing, with all the rich meanings of Ibrahim and Ismail and Al-Jamarat and Mina and Arafat and Al-Muzdalifah and Zamzam, and with all of these rich meanings that we have, which should reverberate throughout the world. Where are we now? What type of message comes out of Mecca? It's become, this MBS character has made the Hajj a laughing stock. Meaningless. The sacrifice that takes place on this day is supposed to, why do we sacrifice? To get rid of hunger. We're taking a life that Allah has given an animal. We're taking that life to save a human life. These meanings don't circulate. Our Hajj, Mecca, is supposed to be a place where we go to freely, where we can stay freely. The same thing with Al-Madinah. Why are all of these barriers thrown up? Why do we have these obstacle courses to go through to qualify to go to Mecca and Al-Madinah? This has to come to an end. Those rulers who are ruling with the support of imperialism and Zionism, those rulers have to go. They are illegitimate. They have to be delegitimized by Allah and His Prophet, by the Quran and the Sunnah. We have to understand that we are being ruled by aliens. Aliens who are dressed up as Muslims. They are hiding behind their rituals. Their hearts are with major Satans and minor Satans. They are not with Allah and they are not with His Prophet. I think when this fact settles deep down inside our hearts, when we look at them just like we look at those who colonize us with bullets and bombs targeting us, when we equate those وَمَنْ يَتَوَلَّهُمْ مِنْكُمْ فَإِنَّهُ مِنْهُمْ, and those of you Muslims who become allies of them, they become part of them. When this is an ayah in Surat al-Ma'idah, when this settles deep down inside of us, we will see another Mecca. We will experience another Mecca and Medina. When that day arrives, we can say from the depths of our hearts and from the fiber of our existence, Eid Mubarak. We can't have a blessed Eid when we are bleeding, when we are incarcerated in nation states, when we need permission to do what Allah is telling us to do. But as much as we can, as much as you can, please have your families feel whatever amount of happiness is available. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh wa sallallahu ala Muhammadin wa ali Muhammad walhamdulillahi rabbil alameen.